In this TeamWork 5 Manager tutorial, I'm going to show you how to adjust the time settings for a specific location, the ways your employees can clock on and off. To do that, go to your top menu bar and click on TeamWork. Make sure you have your enterprise or your location selected, then click on Locations. Next, click on your location. You should arrive at your location's information. To go to the time settings, click on Time at the top of the chart. You should now see a list of your time settings. The first thing on there is Allow Clock. If I check this box, my employees are allowed to clock on and off. Right now I have it to allow clock on always. If I click this arrow, I could only allow employees to clock on when they are scheduled. I'm going to leave it at always. Then I can do an early clock on buffer. Right now it's set to have them clock on 30 minutes early, and that's a little bit too much for me, so I'm going to change this to 15. I'm going to do the same thing to the late clock off buffer. Now my employees only have a 15-minute window to clock on and off. If I want a time punch to be flagged, I can choose to flag an early clock on, so that's when they clock on sooner than 15 minutes before their shift, a late clock off, when they clock off later than 15 minutes, and if they clocked in when they were not scheduled. Next, I need to decide how I want the clock to round. Right now it's set to round to the nearest minute. If I click the arrow, I could also have the clock round to the nearest 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, all the way to 30. I'm going to leave it at the nearest minute. Then I can add break parameters. So if someone were to clock on so many hours, then I would subtract so many break hours. I'm going to go ahead and leave that at 0. Then I'm going to scroll down. Next is the automatic clock off. If an employee forgets to clock off, I might want them to automatically be clocked off. So I can select here if they clock off by schedule or by hours. I'll go ahead and do by hours. Then I'm going to change the hours to 1. So if the employee is an hour late to clock off, TeamWork 5 is going to clock them out automatically, basically assuming that they forgot to clock out before they left. Then I can choose to do an action. If I click this arrow, I can flag this as an error, as an alert, or nothing. I'll go ahead and flag it as an error, and I can leave a message if I want. The other way I can allow my employees to clock on and off is through the time card. If I click this button, employees can enter in their hours on the time card without having to use the time clock. Right now it is set so that they can only adjust their time card entries 1 week before and 1 week after the current week. I'm going to go ahead and change that to 2 weeks, just to give employees a little bit more time to get that ready. Now if I scroll back up to the top, when an employee clocks in, they need to clock into a project or task and an activity. I can choose to set a default project or task for my employees when they clock in, or I can leave this blank and have them select a specific project or task. I can do the same thing with an activity. I can have one automatically set up, or I can leave it blank and they will have to choose one. Even if I set a default, the employee can still change it to something else in that list. Finally, if employees are only allowed to clock on and off at certain IP addresses, basically you only want them clocking in when they're at your facility and not on their way to work or something like that, then you need to copy and paste the specific IP addresses into this box. I'm going to go ahead and leave that blank and scroll all the way down. If you're happy with your changes, then choose Save. And now those changes have been saved. That's how you can adjust the time settings for a specific location. Check out the next video to learn how to add stations to your locations.